The naval base gate buzzed with laughter as new recruits mocked the quiet woman scanning IDs. Another mall cop who couldn't make it in real service, one sneered, performing an exaggerated salute that made the others double over. She remained silent, efficient, her weathered hands betraying subtle scars they were too arrogant to notice. Their mockery died instantly when a black convoy arrived and a 4-star admiral stepped out. Without hesitation, he walked straight to the security guard, stood at attention, and spoke 6 words that froze every rookie in place. "At ease, Viper 1. Thank you, Commander. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If stories of unrecognized heroes and humbling revelations speak to you, consider subscribing for more moments when true valor is revealed beneath the surface of everyday life." Early morning at Naval Station Meridian, the security checkpoint bustled with activity as the fog lifted off the bay. Massive ships were visible in the distance, with helicopters occasionally passing overhead. A line of 20 new recruits in pressed uniforms waited for security clearance, an atmosphere of nervous excitement, evident as some boisterously showed off, while others maintained quiet anticipation. The security booth was manned by a lone female guard in a standard base security uniform. Security Officer Ardell Thorns, early 40s, methodically scanned IDs at the checkpoint with minimal movement and economical gestures. She maintained perfect posture despite her civilian security attire and engaged in no excess conversation, just efficient processing of each recruit. Her weathered hands with subtle scarring were visible when handling documents, though she wore no visible military decorations or personal items, just standard-issue gear. Her face remained impassive, but her eyes constantly scanned the area, missing nothing. A group of recruits at the back of the line grew increasingly impatient with the methodical pace. "My grandmother moves faster than this," recruit Jasper Rennick complained loudly, looking around to ensure his audience appreciated the comment. Others joined in with increasingly bold remarks, testing boundaries of the new environment. Ardell maintained her steady pace, expression unchanged, seemingly oblivious to their commentary. Security cameras silently recorded everything from multiple angles. "Maybe they could not find actual military for security detail," Rennick escalated, voice deliberately carrying. "Probably could not cut it anywhere else," added recruit Lavinia Maddox with a stage whisper. A group dynamic formed around the mockery, each trying to establish dominance in the new environment. Ardell continued her work without any indication she heard or cared about their comments. Drill instructor Knox approached, causing the recruits to immediately straighten up. "Next group ready for processing, sir," Ardell stated simply. Knox checked his clipboard and barked orders to the recruits before dismissively nodding to Ardell. "All yours, ma'am. Try not to keep them all day." This subtle exchange suggested even base staff saw her as a minor functionary. Ardell's only response was a slight nod, showing no visible reaction to the dismissive tone. As processing continued, rain began to fall, making the recruits increasingly uncomfortable. Ardell remained at her post, seemingly impervious to the discomfort around her. Recruit Thackeray Voss deliberately dropped his ID and made a show of retrieving it. "What is the procedure for that, mall cop?" he asked with exaggerated politeness. Others laughed as Ardell simply waited, hand extended for the ID. Her complete lack of reaction made them increasingly uncomfortable, which only spurred more attempts to provoke her. "Been working here long?" Rennick attempted small talk when his turn came. 3 years, Ardell responded minimally while checking his clearance. "Must be exciting checking IDs all day. Ever see any action?" he pressed. Her focus remained entirely on her task. Next recruit. Frustration built among the group as their attempts to provoke a reaction consistently failed. However, during the processing, when a helicopter passed overhead, Ardell briefly touched a small scar near her temple. Her eyes tracked the aircraft with unexpected precision, following its flight path with a momentary stillness that suggested something beyond casual observation. Recruit Bellamy noticed this, watching her more carefully than the others. Unlike his peers, he remained quiet, observing rather than participating in the mockery. After passing through the gate, Rennick turned to give an exaggerated salute. "Thank you for your service, ma'am." Others laughed, each adding their own mocking gestures as they passed through. Ardell continued processing IDs, seemingly immune to the mockery, though there was a slight adjustment to her posture. an almost imperceptible straightening that only Bellamy seemed to notice. The distant sound of a helicopter approaching quickly, with a distinctive engine signature, caused Ardell's head to turn slightly before anyone else noticed the sound. Her hand moved instinctively toward her hip, where a weapon would be if she were armed. For just a moment, her impassive expression broke, revealing a focused intensity that had not been present before. The security phone rang, and Ardell answered it immediately. "Gate security, Thorns," she said. A voice on the other end spoke briefly. "Black convoy inbound, verification protocol Alpha." Her response was immediate and different in tone from anything the recruits had heard from her thus far. Crisp, authoritative, and unmistakably military. "Confirmed. Sector clear." Bellamy's eyebrows raised slightly as he caught the change in her demeanor. This quiet security guard suddenly sounded like someone entirely different, raising a question that hung in the air. Who was this woman, really? The security checkpoint. Atmosphere shifted noticeably as a black SUV convoy approached the gate. Ardell's demeanor subtly changed, her spine straightening to full height, her gaze sharpening with focused attention. The recruits quieted, sensing the importance of the approaching vehicles. Base security personnel appeared from various positions, establishing a perimeter around the checkpoint. Despite Ardell's apparent low status, other security staff deferred to her subtle hand signals, adjusting positions according to her discreet directions. The lead vehicle stopped, and the driver communicated through the window with Ardell. Their conversation was brief and formal, using coded language that suggested protocols beyond standard security procedures. Despite a senior officer being visible in the vehicle, Ardell gave directions rather than receiving them. The recruits exchanged confused glances as the perceived hierarchy was contradicted before their eyes. Drill Instructor Knox returned to the area, but remained unusually subdued in the presence of the convoy, standing back rather than asserting authority as he had earlier. SUV doors opened, and naval officers in formal dress uniforms emerged from the vehicles. The rear vehicle disgorged plainclothes security personnel with obvious military bearing. Ardell stepped from her booth, positioning herself with clear sight lines across the entire area. Her movement had suddenly changed. Gone was the methodical security guard, replaced by efficient, precise tactical positioning. The transformation was subtle, but unmistakable to trained observers. Bellamy watched with increased interest, elbowing Rennick to pay attention. The rear door of the center vehicle opened, and Admiral Evander Blackwood emerged. The distinguished older man wore a uniform with the silver trident insignia clearly visible. He scanned the area, his eyes finding Ardell immediately among all personnel present. There was a momentary pause, something unspoken passing between them across the distance. Ardell gave the smallest nod, an almost imperceptible acknowledgement that nonetheless seemed to satisfy the Admiral. What happened next stunned the watching recruits. Admiral Blackwood walked directly to Ardell, bypassing senior officers who had moved to greet him. He stopped directly before her, studying her face with an intensity that suggested familiarity. "At ease, Viper 1, he said, his voice carrying clearly to the nearby recruits. A ripple of reaction spread through the assembled personnel. Several officers exchanged glances, while the recruits stood in confused silence. Ardell remained absolutely still, neither confirming nor denying the designation, her face as impassive as it had been while checking IDs. The Admiral raised his hand in a formal military salute to the security guard. Ardell returned the salute with perfect military precision, the movement automatic and practiced. The exchange was brief, but loaded with unspoken history. Without further comment, the Admiral continued into the base, accompanied by his staff. Ardell returned to her booth and resumed ID processing as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. "Viper 1, Bellamy whispered, looking at the others. "Was not that—" "Shut up!" Rennick cut him off sharply. "That is classified." The recruits exchanged shocked glances, the atmosphere among them completely transformed. Gone was the mockery and disrespect, replaced by confusion and a growing awareness that they had severely miscalculated. Through it all, Ardell continued her work, giving no indication she noticed their changed behavior. Later that evening in the barracks, Bellamy sat hunched over his laptop, researching Viper 1, while other recruits gathered around him. "Most of it is redacted," he explained, showing heavily censored mission reports. "But look at this." He pulled up a single newspaper headline from 5 years earlier. Special Operations Unit prevents terrorist attack. Details classified. The accompanying photo showed a team in full tactical gear with faces obscured, but a distinctive snake emblem was visible on their equipment. "That is not all," said another recruit who had been talking to members of the senior class. "You will not believe who we have been mocking all day." Before he could continue, the barracks door opened and drill instructor Knox entered. "Lights out in 5. Tomorrow you begin survival training under Base Security Officer Thorns at Oro 600. The next morning, the recruits stood in formation at the training field, which featured an obstacle course unlike standard Navy training facilities. Commander Larimore addressed them. "You will be participating in specialized survival training today. Your instructor has designed this course specifically to test tactical awareness under pressure." The recruits looked around, expecting to see a training officer in military fatigues. Instead, Ardell Thorns approached, still in her security uniform, but now with a training whistle and clipboard. "Security Officer Thorns will be evaluating your performance," Commander Larimore continued. "I suggest you pay close attention to her instructions." Confused murmurs spread through the recruits until Ardell removed her security jacket, revealing tactical training gear underneath. Without a word, she approached the first obstacle, a complex wall and rope configuration. What followed left the recruits in stunned silence. Ardell moved through the obstacle with unexpected skill and efficiency, demonstrating an advanced maneuver that showed years of specialized training. Her movements were fluid, precise, and deceptively powerful. "Officer Thorns holds the base record on this course," Commander Larimore noted with a slight smile. "Good luck matching it." As training progressed, Ardell removed her outer layer due to exertion, revealing extensive scarring on her forearms, with a distinctive pattern suggesting combat wounds. Bellamy noticed, immediately his eyes widening in recognition. The scar pattern matched descriptions he had read in the redacted report about Viper Team. Ardell caught his observation, their eyes meeting briefly. She gave no acknowledgement, but moved on to the next group of recruits, leaving Bellamy with more questions than answers. Throughout the day, Ardell pushed the recruits through increasingly difficult scenarios, her instruction style revealing deep tactical knowledge. She never raised her voice yet commanded absolute attention, providing precise corrections that immediately improved performance. Rennick struggled with a particularly difficult obstacle, becoming visibly frustrated after multiple attempts. Ardell approached quietly. "Lower center of gravity. Lead with your shoulder, not your head," she said simply. The adjustment worked immediately, allowing him to complete the obstacle. Rennick stared at her with newfound respect. After training concluded, Rennick approached Ardell privately as she collected equipment. "I apologize for my behavior at the gate yesterday, ma'am," he said stiffly. Ardell glanced at him briefly. "Noted. I would like to understand, why are you working security instead of—" He hesitated, unsure how to phrase the question. Her interruption was immediate and final. "That is not a question you get to ask, recruit." The dismissal was clear, but not unkind. Rennick nodded and returned to his unit, thoughtful rather than chastened. That evening, Ardell sat in a private office reviewing security footage from the training field. The space was sparsely decorated, but featured multiple monitors displaying various sections of the base. This was clearly not a standard security guard station, but something more specialized. Her phone rang, and she answered with a tone none of the recruits would have recognized, crisp, authoritative, completely different from her checkpoint manner. "Thorns, secure." Admiral Blackwood's voice came through clearly. "We have a situation. Ghost protocol activated." Ardell's expression shifted to something harder, more focused. "Understood. How many know?" "Just us, for now, but that is going to change." She sat straighter, fingers already typing commands into the security system. "Timeline? 48 hours, maybe less," the Admiral replied gravely. "They are coming." The following morning, the base operated under heightened security measures. Additional checkpoints had been established at key locations, and security personnel moved with purposeful efficiency. No official explanation had been given for the increased measures, but the tension was palpable. Recruits found themselves confined to barracks except for scheduled activities, sensing something significant was happening, but unaware of the cause. Officers moved with urgency while maintaining the appearance of routine operations. At midnight, select recruits, including Rennick, Bellamy, and Maddox, were summoned to a secure briefing room deep within the main administrative building. They entered nervously, surprised to find Admiral Blackwood present alongside base commanders and security personnel. Most shocking was Ardell's transformation. No longer in her security uniform, she stood at a tactical display in nondescript tactical gear, with a sidearm now visible at her hip. Her entire bearing had changed. This was clearly someone accustomed to command. "What I am about to tell you is classified level 8, Admiral Blackwood began without preamble. "There is a credible threat to this installation from a specialized terrorist cell with specific knowledge of our operations and personnel." The recruits listened in stunned silence as he outlined the situation. "They are targeting something specific, and we believe they have inside help. Your role in this operation is critical precisely because you are unknown to any potential infiltrators." The Admiral did not mention any connection to Ardell, but his next statement placed her in clear authority. "Security Officer Thorns will be coordinating your involvement in defensive measures. You will follow her orders without question." Ardell stepped forward, activating the tactical display to show a map of the base with specific sections highlighted. "Each of you will be positioned at these observation points," she explained, dividing them into teams and assigning specific locations. "You are unknown faces. Our advantage is they will not recognize you as security assets." Her deployment strategy revealed deep strategic thinking, positioning the recruits to create an observation network covering key approach routes and vulnerable areas. "Ma'am, what exactly are we looking for?" Bellamy asked. "Patterns," she replied precisely. "Anything that breaks routine. You will report directly to me through these secure channels." She distributed specialized communication devices unlike standard military equipment. "These are encrypted beyond normal protocols. Use only the coded language you have been provided." Rennick examined the device skeptically. "We are recruits, not trained security. Why trust us with this?" Ardell fixed him with a steady gaze. "Because the enemy is looking for security personnel, not recruits. Your inexperience is your camouflage." The statement hung in the air, revealing both tactical wisdom and a willingness to utilize unconventional resources. It also planted a question in the recruits' minds. Who exactly was this enemy? And why were they so familiar with base personnel? The next 12 hours saw the recruits deployed across the base, maintaining observation positions while regular operations continued. The tension built as security teams conducted subtle sweeps of critical areas without alerting general personnel. At his observation post overlooking the maintenance bay, Rennick noticed a vehicle with a slight discrepancy in its markings. The base logo was correctly positioned, but the department designation was slightly misaligned, something only noticeable to someone specifically watching for irregularities. He reported through the secure channel directly to Ardell, keeping his communication brief and coded as instructed. Her response was immediate and revealed she had anticipated this exact scenario. "Confirmed. Maintain position, do not approach, record everything." Within minutes, security personnel converged silently on the area, with Ardell personally leading the team. They moved with tactical precision, surrounding the maintenance vehicle as its personnel attempted to access a restricted area. When security intercepted them, the situation escalated rapidly. One suspect drew a weapon, but before he could use it, Ardell moved with unexpected speed and efficiency. She disarmed him using an advanced close combat technique, restraining him with precision that revealed years of specialized training. From their monitoring position in the security center, the recruits watched as Ardell entered an interrogation room with the captured suspect. Her demeanor had completely transformed, cold, focused, intimidating, in a way that required no physical posturing. Most surprising was when she began speaking to the prisoner in a foreign language with native fluency, extracting information through psychological precision rather than intimidation. "That is not a security officer," Bellamy whispered, watching the feed. "That is something else entirely." The mystery of Ardell's identity was partially revealed. She was clearly a highly trained operative with extensive combat and intelligence experience. But this revelation only deepened two new questions. Why was someone with her capabilities working as a base security guard? And what connection did she have to the threat currently targeting the installation? The situation accelerated when Admiral Blackwood entered the security center with his senior staff, reviewing new intelligence. "We have confirmation, full breach imminent, multiple targets identified across the installation, he announced grimly. His staff immediately began suggesting protocols: full base evacuation, lockdown procedures, deployment of Marine security forces. Ardell entered, still in tactical gear, and countered immediately. That is exactly what they want. We go Ghost Protocol. Despite the rank disparity, Admiral Blackwood deferred to her judgment without hesitation. Implement Security Officer Thorne's strategy immediately, he ordered, conspicuously avoiding using any rank with her name. The cinematic rhythm shifted suddenly from urgent action to focused stillness as Ardell outlined her counter-strategy. The security center fell quiet, personnel leaning forward to hear her measured words. The perimeter breach is a distraction, she stated with absolute certainty. Their primary objective is inside these walls already. She moved to a secondary display showing personnel records. Someone with clearance is facilitating this operation from within. We need to identify them before responding to the external threat. The strategic focus shifted from defense to detection, creating a moment of calm deliberation amid the crisis. Ardell's quiet competence, her ability to maintain clear thinking under extreme pressure, created natural empathy without requiring emotional displays. I need all security camera footage from the past 48 hours, she instructed, and continuous monitoring of all communication channels. Turning to the recruits, she assigned them to new observation points. Your inexperience is now your greatest asset. The insider will not perceive you as threats. The symbolic motif of identity credentials reappeared in altered form. In the opening scenes, Ardell had methodically checked IDs at the gate, a seemingly mundane task performed by a minor functionary. Now, those same credentials became potential indicators of infiltration, with Ardell examining security clearances and access patterns with the same methodical precision she had shown at the checkpoint. What had appeared to be simple gate duty was revealed as part of a complex security operation. She had been screening for threats all along, just not the kind the recruits had assumed. As the operation progressed, the physical environment began to reflect the growing internal tensions. The security center, initially brightly lit with clear lines of authority, gradually shifted as lights were dimmed for better screen visibility. Shadows grew longer, creating undefined spaces between personnel. The controlled environment gave way to something more ambiguous, mirroring the uncertainty about who could be trusted. Ardell moved constantly between stations, checking data, reviewing footage, always in motion while maintaining perfect situational awareness. Her gaze frequently returned to a particular monitor showing the base commander's office, currently empty. "Sir, primary breach team approaching north perimeter," reported a security officer. "Let them come," Ardell replied. "Maintain observation only. Do not engage unless directly threatened." Admiral Blackwood watched her closely. "You believe they are expecting us to focus on the perimeter?" "I know they are," she replied, "because that is exactly what I would do in their position." This statement provided another puzzle piece for the watching recruits. Ardell spoke not from theoretical knowledge, but from direct experience with similar tactical situations. She understood the enemy's methodology on a personal level. At his observation post near the communications center, Bellamy noticed an officer entering a restricted area with valid credentials but outside normal working hours. Following Ardell's instructions, he reported the anomaly without interpretation. Commander Larimore entering communications hub, authorization code accepted, timestamp 0227. Ardell's response was immediate. Maintain visual, do not approach. On the security monitors, they watched as Commander Larimore, the same officer who had introduced Ardell as a training instructor, moved through the communications center with purpose, accessing a secure terminal. "He has level 7 clearance," noted a security officer. "Access is authorized." "Check what systems he is accessing," Ardell instructed, her focus intensifying. Moments later, the report came back. "Perimeter security protocols and deployment patterns." "That is our insider," Ardell stated with certainty. "Lock down his access, silently." Before the order could be implemented, alarms blared across the base. The perimeter breach had begun, exactly as Ardell had predicted. Base personnel scrambled to defensive positions, while Ardell remained focused on the internal threat. He triggered the alarm manually, she noted, watching Larimore's movements on the monitor, creating maximum chaos to cover whatever he is really doing. The rhythm shifted again, from calculated stillness to urgent action. Ardell began issuing rapid commands, deploying security teams to contain both the external breach and the internal threat. "I need eyes on Larimore at all times," she ordered. "Do not engage, just track." To the recruits, she issued new instructions. "Maintain your observation posts. You are now our only reliable assets." This simple statement carried heavy implications. She trusted these untrained recruits more than established security personnel, because she could be certain they were not part of the conspiracy. As the base descended into controlled chaos, with security teams responding to multiple breach points, Ardell maintained her focus on the bigger picture. She moved to a secure communications terminal, establishing direct contact with external support units. "Ghost protocol active, verification code Sierra Tango 9, she stated, requesting immediate QRF deployment. The response came instantly. "Verification confirmed. QRF en route. ETA 15 minutes. Rennick, stationed near the command center, reported movement. Multiple officers entering command bunker, Commander Larimore among them." Ardell's expression hardened. "That is their target. The command bunker houses the nuclear response protocols." For the first time, the true stakes became clear. This was not a simple security breach, but an attempt to access the installation's most sensitive strategic assets. Admiral Blackwood turned to Ardell. "We need to move now." "Agreed," she responded, checking her sidearm with practiced efficiency. But not through the front door. She activated a terminal, accessing base schematics that revealed her intimate knowledge of the installation's layout. "There is a maintenance access tunnel here, connecting to the command bunker's secondary entrance. That access requires command override," noted a security officer. "I have it," Admiral Blackwood stated, surprising the others. The silent, high-tension turning point arrived as Ardell and the Admiral prepared to move out. She paused, studying him with sudden intensity. "Sir, how long have you known Commander Larimore?" she asked, voice carefully neutral. 20 years, Blackwood replied. "We served together before his assignment here." Ardell nodded once, decision made. "Then you should stay here, Admiral." The security team froze, uncertain how to react to this apparent insubordination. "Explain, Officer Thorns," Blackwood demanded, voice tight. "If Larimore is compromised and has been for some time, he would have anticipated your involvement," she stated calmly. "Your presence would be a liability." The logic was sound, but delivered with an authority that contradicted her apparent position. Something in her tone made the Admiral consider, rather than dismiss her assessment. "Very well," he conceded after a moment, "but you will take a full tactical team." "No, sir," she countered immediately. "A single operator has better odds of infiltration. This requires precision, not force." Their exchange revealed layers of authority and experience that transcended formal rank. Despite her security guard position, Ardell spoke with the confident assessment of an elite operator, and more surprisingly, the Admiral accepted her judgment. "Maintain command here," she instructed him. "If I am not back in 30 minutes, implement full lockdown and wait for QRF arrival." The Admiral nodded grimly. "Understood." As Ardell prepared to depart, she addressed the recruits directly. "Maintain your positions. What happens next depends on your eyes and ears." The responsibility placed on these untrained personnel seemed disproportionate, raising yet another question. Why trust them with such critical roles unless there was no other option? Ardell moved toward the exit, her movements now fully revealing her true training, each step precise, balanced, ready for instant action. At the door, she paused, looking back at the security center with an expression that suggested she might not return. "One more thing," she said quietly. "If this goes sideways, tell them Viper 1 completed the mission." Before anyone could respond, she was gone, leaving the recruits and security personnel to exchange bewildered glances. The statement made no sense unless there was much more to this operation than anyone had been told. As the minutes ticked by, tension mounted in the security center. External breach teams had been contained by base security, but communications from the command bunker had gone silent, all monitors showing that sector displayed only static. "Something is blocking the signal," a technician reported. "All cameras in Sector 4 are down." 28 minutes after Ardell's departure, with lockdown protocols just minutes from implementation, The command bunker doors opened on monitor feeds suddenly restored. Commander Larimore emerged, followed by 3 other officers, all in restraints and escorted by base security, who had not been part of the original response team. Ardell followed behind, them still in tactical gear, but now moving with evident pain, one hand pressed against her side. Blood was visible between her fingers. "Medical to command bunker, immediate," ordered Admiral Blackwood, rushing toward the exit. The factual shock that ended the scene came not through additional evidence or confrontation, but through what security personnel discovered in Commander Larimore's possession: a complete operational file labeled Viper Team, Operation Kingsnake, containing detailed information on 5 team members. 4 of the files were marked with red stamps. Eliminated. Only 1 remained unmarked. The file for Commander Ardell Thorns, call sign Viper 1. Medical personnel rushed through the command center corridors, guiding a stretcher toward the infirmary. Ardell Thorns lay still, her tactical gear cut away to reveal the wound at her side. Despite obvious pain, her eyes remained alert, scanning her surroundings with the same watchfulness she had shown at the security gate. "Status report," she demanded as Admiral Blackwood entered the medical bay. "All hostiles contained. Larimore and his accomplices in custody. The base is secure," he responded, ignoring the medical staff's concerned glances. "QRF has arrived and taken over perimeter control." Ardell nodded once, wincing as the medic applied pressure to her wound. "The operational files?" "Secured. We have everything," Blackwood confirmed. They had detailed intelligence on Viper Team, all of it. The implications hung heavy in the air, not just a random attack, but a coordinated effort specifically targeting surviving Viper operatives. The wound in Ardell's side was merely the latest attempt in a years-long campaign that had already claimed 4 lives. Base personnel gathered outside the medical bay, the crowd growing as word spread about what had transpired. Junior officers, senior enlisted, and the recruits who had participated in the operation, all waiting for news about the security guard who had revealed herself as something much more. Inside, medical staff worked efficiently to treat Ardell's injury. "Clean through and through, no major organs affected," reported the lead physician. "Commander Thorns is fortunate." The use of her rank, spoken openly for the first time on the base, marked the beginning of the public revelation. What had been hidden was now acknowledged, at least within the confines of the secure medical facility. 2 hours later, Ardell sat upright in the recovery bed, monitoring screens displaying her stable vital signs. The wound had been treated and bandaged, pain evident in her careful movements, but determination stronger in her expression. "The recruits performed well," she noted, as Admiral Blackwood provided her with after-action details, especially considering their lack of training. "They had good leadership," the Admiral replied, "and an object lesson in appearances versus reality." A knock at the door preceded the entrance of recruits Rennick, Bellamy, and Maddox, hesitant and uncertain of their welcome. They stood at attention just inside the doorway, eyes widening at the sight of Ardell in a hospital bed rather than her security uniform. "At ease," she instructed, her voice carrying the same quiet authority it had during the crisis. "You have questions." The statement, not a question itself, opened the door to what had been building since the Admiral had first called her Viper 1 at the security gate. "Permission to speak freely, ma'am," Rennick requested. Ardell nodded once. "Who are you? Really?" The direct question, asked in front of the Admiral and medical staff, created the perfect setting for the public reveal. This was not a private confession, but an acknowledgement witnessed by representatives from across the base hierarchy. "Officially, I am Security Officer Ardell Thorns, Base Security, Naval Station Meridian," she began, her tone matter-of-fact. "Unofficially, I am Commander Ardell Thorns, former leader of Special Operations Unit Viper." Admiral Blackwood reached into his briefcase, retrieving a folder and placing it on the bed beside her. "I believe it is time to end the charade, Commander." She opened the folder, revealing official Navy documentation with her photograph and full service record, including decorations classified above top secret. The visual payoff of the identification motif culminated in this moment, her true identity formally documented, officially acknowledged, no longer hidden behind the security guard facade. 5 years ago, Commander Thorns led a specialized strike team that prevented a terrorist attack against a naval carrier group. The Admiral explained to the stunned recruits. The operation succeeded, but the terrorist network vowed revenge against the team responsible. Ardell continued the narrative, her voice steady despite her injury. They began hunting us, systematically, one by one. 3 years ago, after losing 2 team members, I made the decision to disappear. The commander officially accepted medical discharge and entered a specialized protection program, Admiral Blackwood added. She assumed her current role to maintain operational security while we tracked the threat. You worked as a security guard, Maddox said incredulously, checking IDs at the gate. The best place to watch for threats is at the entrance, Ardell replied simply. Every person, every vehicle, every delivery passes through security checkpoints. I saw everything and everyone while appearing to be nothing special. The power reversal completed itself cleanly through this explanation. What had appeared to be a demeaning position was revealed as a strategic choice made by an elite operative. The security guard uniform was not a demotion, but a calculated cover that provided optimal surveillance capabilities. Over the past 3 years, I identified and neutralized 17 potential security threats to this installation. She continued. None ever realized who they were really facing. The recruits absorbed this information with growing understanding. Every moment of disrespect, every mocking salute they had directed toward her, took on new meaning in light of her true identity. We did not know, Rennick began awkwardly. If we had understood who you were, then my cover would have been compromised, Ardell interrupted. Your behavior was exactly what I needed to maintain operational security. Perfect contempt for an unimportant security guard. This unexpected perspective shift, reframing their mockery as inadvertent assistance, offered the recruits a path to redemption, without dismissing their initial misjudgment. The chaotic emotions of embarrassment, respect, and understanding began resolving into clarity. What happens now? Bellamy asked. With Larimore captured and the network exposed, Admiral Blackwood glanced at Ardell, a silent communication passing between them. Commander Thorns will be officially reinstated and reassigned to appropriate duties. After recovery, added the physician pointedly. Ardell's slight smile acknowledged both statements. And you 3 will continue your training with a better understanding of why appearances can be deceiving. As if on cue, a senior officer appeared at the doorway. Sir, Commander Thorns' uniforms have arrived as requested. 2 junior officers entered, carrying dress blues and service uniforms on hangers, complete with commander's insignia and decoration ribbons. The sight of these official uniforms alongside Ardell's security attire hanging in the room's closet created a powerful visual contrast. The dual identities now side by side. Thank you. That will be all. The Admiral dismissed the recruits, who saluted both officers before departing. In the corridor outside, the base staff had assembled, forming an impromptu honor corridor. As word had spread about Commander Thorns' true identity, personnel from every department had gathered to show respect. The same people who had barely acknowledged the security guard now stood at attention, waiting for a glimpse of the decorated officer she truly was. 2 days later, Ardell stood before the bathroom mirror in her quarters, adjusting her commander's uniform for the first time in 3 years. The insignia gleamed in the early morning light, a stark contrast to the plain security uniform she had worn for so long. She moved carefully, mindful of her healing wound, but with the same precision that had characterized every action, whether checking IDs or neutralizing threats. Her identity had changed in the eyes of the base personnel, but her essential nature remained constant. The tension that had driven the narrative, the immediate threat, the years of hiding, the constant vigilance, gradually yielded to reflection. As Ardell walked through the base toward the command center for her first official briefing, she observed the transformed reactions to her presence. Junior officers who had previously ignored her now stood at attention. Administrative staff who had barely acknowledged her existence now offered respectful greetings. The entire base atmosphere had shifted based solely on external markers of rank and accomplishment. In the command center, Admiral Blackwood formally introduced her to the assembled staff. Commander Thorns will be overseeing security operations during her recovery period before reassignment to active field duty. The announcement was met with respectful acknowledgement, so different from the dismissive attitude that had greeted her as a security officer. Yet Ardell's demeanor remained unchanged, the same quiet competence, the same focused attention that had always characterized her work. After the briefing, she encountered the recruits in the training yard, now under the supervision of a new instructor. They immediately stood at attention, offering perfect salutes. "As you were," she instructed, studying their formation with the same critical eye she had shown during their training session. "Your stance has improved, Recruit Rennick." "Thank you, Commander," he replied, the respectful tone genuine rather than mocking. "You still favor your right side too much during evasive maneuvers," she noted to Maddox. "Work on that." "Yes, ma'am." As she turned to leave, Bellamy spoke up. "Commander Thorns?" She paused, waiting. "Why did you continue the training session with us, even after we had been so disrespectful at the gate?" The question cut to the heart of her character, offering the opportunity for moral resonance beyond the surface reveal of her identity. "A security officer's responsibility is to protect everyone on this base, regardless of their behavior," she replied. "Your safety did not depend on your respect." The simple statement contained the essence of true service, duty fulfilled without requirement of recognition or appreciation, protection offered not because it was deserved, but because it was needed. 1 week later, Ardell stood at the base gate in her commander's uniform, observing the security checkpoint procedures. The setting mirrored the opening scene, but with transformed meaning. Where once she had stood inside the booth, checking IDs, now she watched as a new security officer performed the same duty. A group of newly arrived personnel passed through, offering respectful acknowledgement to the security staff. No mockery, no disrespect. The lesson learned by Rennick's group had spread throughout the training cohorts. Ardell nodded to the security officer, who returned the acknowledgement with professional courtesy. The exchange symbolized the connection between all levels of service, regardless of apparent status or recognition. Admiral Blackwood joined her at the observation point. "Transport arrives tomorrow for your reassignment, Commander." "Yes, sir. The new security protocols are fully implemented and operational," she reported. "The base is secure." "Thanks to you," he acknowledged, "though few will ever know the full extent of your contribution here." She smiled slightly. "That was the point, Admiral." As they walked toward the administration building, they passed the recruits training on the obstacle course. Rennick spotted Commander Thorns and called his group to attention, each offering a precision salute that contrasted sharply with their previous mocking gestures. Ardell returned the salute with equal precision, the formal acknowledgement completing the transformation from disrespect to recognition. Later that afternoon, Ardell visited the security office where she had worked for 3 years. The small utilitarian space contained few personal items. She had maintained minimal presence even in her cover identity. She collected these few belongings, packing them efficiently in a standard-issue duffel. The security chief, who had been her nominal supervisor during her undercover assignment, watched with newfound understanding. "It was an honor serving with you, Commander, even if I did not know it at the time." "The honor was mine, Chief," she replied sincerely. "You run a tight operation here." "Not as tight as we thought, apparently," he said with a rueful smile. 17 threats neutralized without official reports." "Security is always a work in progress," she offered. "The goal is continuous improvement, not perfection." As she departed the security office for the last time, she passed a bulletin board displaying the base's recognition for outstanding service. Posted prominently was a new security protocol named the Thorns Standard for Comprehensive Threat Assessment. The final morning of her assignment, Ardell stood at attention in her dress uniform as the base personnel assembled for a formal ceremony. Admiral Blackwood presented her with a commendation for her 3 years of unrecognized service. "Commander Thorns exemplifies the highest traditions of naval service," he stated for the official record, "performing her duty with excellence regardless of recognition or acknowledgement." The assembled personnel, including all the recruits who had once mocked her at the gate, stood at attention as she received the commendation. The public acknowledgement, while appropriate, seemed almost secondary to the quiet satisfaction of duty fulfilled. After the ceremony, as transport preparations were underway, Ardell took a final walk around the base perimeter. She passed the security gate, where her cover identity had begun 3 years earlier. The booth stood as it always had, a simple structure belying its critical importance to base security. Recruit Bellamy, now assigned to administrative duties due to his analytical skills, approached with a question that had clearly been weighing on his mind. "Ma'am, if I may ask, was it difficult, being treated with such disrespect when you deserved the opposite?" Ardell considered the question carefully before responding. Respect, based on rank or reputation, is easy to give, recruit. It costs nothing. True respect recognizes worth regardless of outward indicators. She gestured toward the security booth. That position is vital to this installation's safety. Every person performing that duty deserves respect for the responsibility they carry, not for the insignia they wear. The lesson landed with quiet impact, a fundamental truth about service, honor, and the nature of true respect that transcended military hierarchy. As sunset approached, Ardell stood at the transport helicopter in her commander's uniform, duffel at her feet. The base personnel had lined up to see her off, an honor guard assembled to mark her departure. Admiral Blackwood offered a final salute. "Fair winds and following seas, Commander." She returned the salute precisely, then turned to board the helicopter. As she settled into her seat, she glanced out the window at the security gate now illuminated in the setting sun. A new officer stood at the checkpoint, methodically checking IDs with the same attention to detail she had maintained for 3 years. The helicopter lifted off, the base growing smaller below. From her elevated vantage point, Ardell could see the entire installation, the security perimeter, the training grounds, the command center, all the areas she had protected without recognition or acknowledgement. The image that lingered was not of her commander's insignia or the formal honors, but of the security booth standing sentinel at the gate, quiet and unassuming, yet essential to everything that happened within. Have you ever encountered someone whose quiet competence spoke volumes? Someone dismissed or underestimated until a critical moment revealed their true value? The most profound strength often comes without declaration or demand for recognition. It simply reveals itself when needed most, then returns to silent service when the moment passes.